Look into the eyes of a giant. Hello everybody, Sparkster1701 here. As we get ready for the Christmas holiday, I want you all to take a gander at the newest Titan class figure, Omega Supreme. And of course he comes with an accomplice, the Micromaster figure known as Countdown. Of course, last month we took a look at G1 Omega Supreme, and as you can see, he's kind of a shrimpy compared to the new one. And of course, we also, for comparison's sake, we've also dug out Countdown. That way we can take a look at both of them. Yes, Titan Class Omega Supreme. Unfortunately, you're going to have to look hard to find him, because thanks to Toys R Us not being open around here, you'll have to go elsewhere to get him. I got lucky and happened to find him at my last toy show. It became the envy of a lot of parents and kids, apparently, as I sat out in the hallway waiting for my brother to catch up, straddling this thing in front of me. But yeah, as you can see, they do cover a fair amount of the similarities between the two toys. A lot of the colors are reasonably close to the same, or are meant to evoke certain things from the original toy. But of course, this new one is now more purpose-built, as the base mode is intended to accommodate the Micromasters, so that'll be nice, whereas the original was just a toy from another toy company slapped into the Transformer toy line. But at any rate, we're going to have ourselves some fun with this. But first, let's take a look at his little sidekick, since Countdown doesn't get a lot of recognition. Alright, we'll take a look at the Countdown figures here. Here's the Generation 1 version. And this one came out in 1989. He was sold with a rocket base. So he was one of two of the bases that was released in 1989 for the Micromasters that had a unique body. The other one, of course, being his counterpart on the Decepticon side, Skystalker. And I've not reviewed Skystalker yet. Countdown was one of my earlier ones. But this is his Generation 1 form. And as typical with all Micromasters of that era, you could rotate his arm at the shoulder all the way. He could bend his legs at the hip about 90 degrees, and he could bend at the knee about 90 degrees. And he had a very simple transformation that turned him into a moon rover. Now we have New Countdown, which comes as a bonus figure with Omega Supreme. I guess Omega Supreme is replacing the original rocket base, which is fine. That's fine by me. That's fine by me, especially with the new plans coming up with Earthrise. Supposedly some of the Micromaster components on some of the toys will be compatible with the new Omega Supreme toy. So that'll be rather interesting to see how they do that. But at any rate, what can we do with this version of Countdown? Well, he's too small to do anything with his head. The arms can go out about so far, and he can rotate them all the way at the shoulder. His legs can be spread apart about so far. You can raise his leg at the hip about 90 degrees, and you can bend his leg at the knee about 90 degrees. And of course, he transforms pretty much just as simply as his G1 counterpart and becomes a similar vehicle. He is a lunar rover. And looks pretty good at it. And I've noticed here, a lot of the markings on the front of him are very similar to the markings that are on the front of the toy. So, kudos to Hasbro and Takara for the attention to detail that they gave on this little Micromaster. So, that's a definite plus for vintage fans like myself. Now, of course, we need to talk about articulation on Omega Supreme. We'll start by comparing him to the original. The original, as you may recall, he is a motorized toy. There's no batteries in him this time around, since he's just here for a comparison sake. So basically all you could do with him was you could turn the head from side to side. The arms could be raised up about that far, and you could rotate them. The only problem was that the train track on his backpack gets in the way. And you have a couple of joints here at the bicep and elbow. And he does have a swivel. So he's got a fairly good range of motion with his arms. It's just, unfortunately, everything else beyond that is terrible due to the motorized function and the way he's constructed. As this Omega Supreme, for those of you who weren't around for last month's video, this one you take apart and rebuild the base layout out of it. I mean, the arms become the rocket, most of the body is the tank, and the rest of it, plus a few other added pieces, forms the base mode. Whereas that's entirely different here on New Omega. Ugh. For New Omega Supreme, he's kind of different. Instead of it just being the ends of his arms that form the rocket, the entire arm display is the rocket. When you go to transform him, you'll start by removing the train tracks here at his shoulders, open up the backpack, and then you'll take the arms off, and then the arms collapse together to form the rocket. And then after another step, you'll remove the midsection of the body. That becomes the tank. Then everything else that's left folds up into becoming the base. Then, of course, you attach the roadways. It's a little hard to call them roadways now. They're not train tracks specifically, but you get the idea. We'll take a look at it here in a moment. Of course, he's also got some transparency on the head, so standing him here right underneath my dining room light, as you can see, we're getting kind of a nice glow from his eyes. As you can see, this one actually has a face to it, whereas the original toy did not have a face. But the encore version of this toy, the reissue of him in Japan, does have a face in there. Now, as for articulation on this one, you can turn his head from side to side. It does move a lot smoother. And it does rock back and forth, just not very much. You can extend his arms out to the side, about so far. And the arms do rotate at the shoulder. Again, the tracks will get in the way for going all the way around. The claws here on his claw hand do open up all the way, but they also have a second point of articulation in the middle. So you can kind of go with a more menacing grasper claw look, which is kind of a nice upgrade. And of course, over here is the cannon arm. And it's got the blast effects that he comes with. He comes with several. There's about 5 or 6 in here. There's 6 total altogether, which can be scattered around him, or you can assemble them all like this to be a nice blast for the rocket, or even put them under here to simulate that the rocket is firing. That's kind of nifty. Let's remount the camera here so we can take a look at his legs. The legs here, as you will soon see, he can do pretty much a full splits. I'm afraid to get him up too much higher or he might hit the chandelier. There we go. And of course the legs do bend here at the hip and at the knees. So it becomes classically, what more articulation do you need out of this bad boy? You don't really need much more, to be specific. He's got quite enough as it is. And again, just like with Jetfire the other week, he is a bit complicated to transform, so we're not going to show it here on camera. But I'm also going to have to clear off the backdrop of the table, so that way I can have both of them laid out here on the table in their base modes. So we'll be back here in just a moment to show off how they look in base mode. Alright, let's take a look at things now. Here's the Generation 1 Omega Supreme done up in its base mode. And of course we got G1 Countdown there in the middle. Now remember from my Omega Supreme video, he basically rolled around this track in his tank mode since he was motorized. And now over here, you can see, by golly, we've got the new Omega Supreme, and quite a considerable difference. He covers a shorter area. Let's get an aerial shot of him. As you can see, he covers considerably smaller area, but by golly, this rocket stands probably close to 2 feet tall. And that's all one solid piece there, folks. Of course, there are hidden areas on here that you can open up. Like right up here. You can open up this area here. And then a little Micromaster guy can ride inside. So it's got plenty of play accessories for the Micromasters. Plus, of course, the yellow shields that were prominent on the front of the toy. As you can see over here, they are basically doubling as little access points. So again, Micromaster can hide inside there and then come out as they see fit, provided you don't get them wedged in there good. That's probably one downside of it. A little easy to get them wedged in if you're not careful. The tracks are 2 solid pieces, but they fold up when they're attached to Omega Supreme's body. And of course, the base unit here, it's kind of okay. It's not going to impress many people, but it does basically do the job for a Micromaster. Let's get him converted here. Transform him back to the robot. There we go. And Countdown can stand in there. Don't have any others up here with me at the moment, or we'd fill this place out with them. And then, of course, here we got the tank. Now, the tank can be driven around it, but it doesn't do it as well, since the tank's a little too wide to ride on the track. But he does have independent wheels here, so rolls pretty good on the tablecloth here, so that's not too bad. But as an added bonus, even though the tank is not motorized, you unfortunately can't turn the turret due to the fact that this back portion here is the head. They are not connected in a way that allows it to turn. But you can raise and lower the gun barrel, so that's always a nice thing. And the track is dotted with a lot of the little studs that has been prominent in the Siege toy line, so you can leather this thing in blast marks. Simulate Starscream and company swooping in and taking pot shots at him. So, quite an impressive little layout that they came up with for this toy. Now, as for my thoughts on this version of Omega Supreme, well, I kind of like it, to be honest with you. I do kind of like what they went for with it. This does pay a lot of homage to the G1 toy, and Lord knows how important we are to Hasbro these days. So they either got to please us with the toys or the movies or any of that sort of stuff, or nobody goes and sees it, or nobody goes out and buys these things in their eyes except us old fans. But this one does also leave room open for the next wave. I mean, we actually get a Titan-sized toy that is designed with the Micromasters in mind. And as I said earlier, supposedly some of the new toys that are coming out with Earthrise, the next part of War for Cybertron, will also feature things that will be compatible with this toy. I haven't seen anything that proves it yet, so it's kind of, we'll have to wait until it gets closer to March when many of them get released, and we'll definitely break this toy out again so that we can see how some of that works. I do like the fact that it's not a battery-powered toy. I mean, yeah, the original was great at that, but I don't see it working this time around with it, and I'm kind of glad they didn't go with that. The base mode itself is a little disappointing with the way it's set up, but that's minor when you consider the fact that at least it's accommodating the Micromasters. So, better than nothing, This didn't accommodate anybody. It didn't really accommodate any Transformers. And due to the way the scaling was done, many of the guys standing next to it would look woefully too large. But here, they may not still look exactly right, but at least it's better. At least it looks better. The only other real downside that I have with this guy is the price tag. At $180, he is expensive to pick up. And unfortunately, unless you're like me and you have a toy show in your neighborhood where you might be able to pick him up, you're going to have to go online to buy this toy. Ever since Toys R Us went under, none of the other big box stores are going to carry Omega Supreme or any other Titan-sized toys. Which is kind of the reason why a few other collectors and Transformer enthusiasts, like Rodimus Primal, for example, have suggested that next year's Earthrise will be the end of the Titans when they release Scorponok. And of course, that would be all of them from the G1 era will have been reissued. So they did Metroplex with Generations. Fortress Maximus and Trypticon were done during Titan's Return. Now we've got Omega Supreme here for Siege. And supposedly for Earthrise, we're getting Scorponok. So that'll be the end of the Titans. Unless they decide to do some of the Japanese exclusives, and that I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind seeing a Japanese exclusive one get done, since Lord knows many of us G1 collectors would love some of the fancy Japanese toys, but there is just no way we can afford the price tags on them. Even ones that are out of the box are still woefully expensive. So, but in the case of Omega here, I think he ticks off all the right boxes. He does leave a little room for improvement, because, I mean, as you can see, the rocket doesn't close up very well on mine, but all in all, I still like it. I think this one is definitely just as worthy of being a top-tier toy as the original one was. Especially with if the rumors are true and there'll be a lot more Micromaster-focused toys in Earthrise that can be combined with this toy, then he's definitely worth it. If you're a G1 fan that would like to set up a diorama display of them, or just a collector that would like to do that, or you actually have kids that would want to play with this, I'd say it's worth the money. If the rumors are true and we're going to get some add-ons to be put on this thing in the next year, then I'd say it's worth the money. To be honest with you folks, I seriously think it's worth it. Anyway, that concludes my review of the Siege version of Omega Supreme. I hope everybody out there enjoyed it. If you liked the video, drop me a thumbs up here on YouTube. If you're new to the channel, please hit my subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you can join our ranks and be alerted when new content goes up. Unless the government decides to shut me down next year. God, I hope not. But also share your thoughts about Omega Supreme here in the comments section down below. This is Sparkster1701 reminding you that the holidays are upon us, so Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, whatever you celebrate out there, I want to remind you, celebrate it with someone you love. And I'll catch you all later.